headlines all over America today are that McConnell blinked. McConnell blinked. Listen, the press hates McConnell. A lot of Republicans do too. President Trump accusing him of selling out on the debt ceiling. I don't know that it's a sellout. It is a punt for sure. But there are some dynamics you got to keep in mind here. First of all, as long as the Republicans in the Senate were continuing to refuse to cooperate, the Democrats had a united front against them. Now, let's take the media out of the equation. We know the media is not going to be fair or honest. We know they're going to lie to help the Democrats. We know they're going to mischaracterize this as Republican obstruction. And the Democrats could do it with reconciliation. The media has ignored all of that. They're going to continue to ignore all of that. What you got to pay attention to more specifically, however, is that as long as the Republicans were blocking the debt ceiling increase as they have been, the Democrats had a united front. Last night, the moment Mitch McConnell signaled he would cut a deal, the Democrats went back to fighting each other pretty ruthlessly, which is what McConnell wanted. Now, the reality is that this is going to get punted until December. The Treasury Department, or the Congress will raise the debt ceiling by $480 billion. That will provide enough money. Think about this, $480 billion will only provide enough money to get to December. And we will have this fight all over again, and nobody's position has changed. There are a couple of dynamics here that I don't know that have gone explored that we probably need to explore. Number one, Joe Manchin signaled he would not gut the filibuster to raise the debt ceiling. So if all of the Republicans hold together come December and Joe Manchin keeps his word on this, the Democrats will have to cut a deal because there won't be the votes to scrap the filibuster. However, point two, there are a couple of Republican senators, including Rob Portman and Roy Blunt, who are not running for re-election. Both of them have suggested they could see a carve-out on the debt ceiling, that they could carve the debt ceiling out of the filibuster and allow the filibuster to still apply to everything except the debt ceiling. McConnell is worried about the filibuster. If they carve out an exception for the debt ceiling, it sets a precedent that there are legislative items to be carved out. Keep in mind that the filibuster, Harry Reid carved out an exception for judicial nominations or general nominations. And because of that exception, when the Republicans got back into power, they said, well, there's an exception for nominations. Supreme Court's a nomination. That falls under the exception as well. And the whole kit and caboodle blew up for nominations. So you carve out an exception for the debt ceiling, suddenly it's a piece of legislation. Suddenly there are carve-outs for legislation. Suddenly it becomes very easy to argue, well, precedent has been set here on some legislation. This is very critical. So is civil rights. So is gay rights. So are transgender rights. So is banking reform. So is the Green New Deal. So is climate. And suddenly it's a domino effect. McConnell is strategically worried about that. He is worried about the debt ceiling. That Joe Manchin came out and said he would not support a filibuster exception for the debt ceiling suggests McConnell is worried about some of the Republicans who have chosen not to run again for office. Roy Blunt and Rob Portman are both the most likely suspects because both of them have signaled they would consider an option. And McConnell wants to preserve the filibuster.